as we said just before lunch, I know many people got to speak, or a number of people got to speak to Michael over lunch. Certainly, we've had quite a few questions raised, so we just try and work our way through as many of these as we can. I say we, I'm going to be asking the questions, hopefully you're going to be answering. And then depending on time, if we've got chance for any more afterwards, but we'll just have to see how we go. So, Michael, in no particular order, any thoughts or advice or guidance you might have for people who do feel that they struggle a little bit with imposter syndrome, as you mentioned earlier on, and what type of, maybe tips, guidance you would have for those people?
First of all, I want to tell you, break some myths about imposter syndrome. You know who gets imposter syndrome are high performers. You know who doesn't get imposter syndrome are people that sit in their couch all day and don't do nothing new. So imposter syndrome, in a way, is you pushing yourself to new heights. And it's like a natural thing of your ego not wanting change. So if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, that may be a good thing. So don't get down on yourself. Here's a really simple tool you can do to overcome imposter syndrome. It's massively, all the business owners, entrepreneurs, that I tell them to do this, and like 2 weeks later, they're like, that was awesome, but you got to do it. Go buy a notebook and call it the Affect Journal. And every day, what you want to do, maybe in the evening when you're reflecting on your day, is think about like all the meetings you've had, all the phone calls you've had, everything that you've done, and write down all the ways you positively affected the world. Oh, I had that conversation, I helped them out, I mentored that. And you're going to probably have a list of 10, 20, 30 things. And just keep adding to that and adding to that and adding to that. Because the imposter syndrome is your brain not wanting to accept the additional responsibility. But when you can start rewiring yourself to remember all the positives that you do every day, you realize you're massively powerful, and you're going to rewire your brain to positivity. So it's called an Affect Journal, how you positively affect the world every day, and just reflect on your day, write it down, and every evening do the same thing, and you'll start to rewire that.
Okay, thank you. Can I keep going with this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So a few people have asked this. The example you gave earlier on about, I think it was it Lola? Layla.
Yes.
Lola. But that action was instigated by her CEO. A few people have said, have you got any thoughts or guidance on people who want to impact and affect leadership within the firm, but maybe more, I don't want to say managing upwards, but I'll put it in those terms. So the flip side of the example that you gave earlier on, just how to instigate that change.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we talk about managing up or leading up, I'll answer a similar question, then I'll answer that one. So people say, how do you deal with people in their ego? And you may have a manager in your ego, you may have a customer in your ego, you may have somebody else in your ego. When you can remember that person in their ego, maybe they're aggressive, maybe they're bullying, maybe they're withdrawn, whatever it is, when you can remember that their ego is driven because they don't feel safe, sometimes that will change how you relate to them. Maybe you have a little more compassion for them. Maybe you don't take things as personally when they throw things harshly at you. Maybe you don't do things like call them out in a meeting. Because it's just like an animal who's scared is sort of like this person that's scared. And they're deathly afraid that anybody's going to know they're scared. That's why they're doing these behaviors. So I did, because that's one of the questions I had. How do you deal with people that are always in their ego? So that might just remember that they're scared, and that can sometimes shift how you relate to them. There's that. Second thing is managing up. So I've had to manage up, and I've been the boss who probably people like, I got to manage up to this guy as well. So a couple things to remember. Often, you don't have the full picture. So you might be like, oh, my manager is not communicating. I don't understand why they're doing this. Just remember, there may be things that they can't tell you or they're choosing not to tell you because it's confidential, because it's not appropriate to tell you. So you very, very rarely have the full picture of what that person's dealing with. Second is, if you want to communicate and get something done, you should take leadership of the situation and find out what's important to them. What are their KPIs? What do they worry about? What's important to them? How do they reach their goals? And then whatever you want to get done, frame it in a way that relates to what they want. There's a thing like, what's in it for me? So when you're talking to them, if you really want it to strengthen how you influence, you got to understand how this person is thinking and meet them where they're at. And I'll tell you, that's a great skill to develop as you work with more and more strategic clients, with the CEOs of customers, et cetera. And the last thing is to pick your battles, is to really work on the timing of when you deliver things. They're under a lot of stress. They got 1,000 things going on. So when you deliver things, always deliver it as a solution. Not, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. Say, hey, I realize this is what you want to achieve. I can help you achieve that. Here's what I need from you. You can be asking for the same thing, but when you frame it that way, that's a much more powerful and positive way to frame it. And that's a much more authentic self way to frame it.
Okay, thank you. Shall I ask you one more question? I know people have been asking you questions.
Yeah, good.
And then, so when you were speaking earlier on around, the transition into leadership, and you shared your story, but a few people have asked me, in your experience, have you seen any certain groups or certain types of people who may struggle or make that transition easier than others?
Well, I'll answer it on a couple different levels. I mean, I want to deliver a very important message, especially to all the men in here. If you have women on your team, and I hope it's okay to say this, I'm going to take a bit of a risk saying this, but I think it's important to say, if you have women on your team, they're probably not speaking up as much as they could, based on 1,000 societal and everything else. And if you have people of color on your team, they're probably not speaking up as much as they could as well. And if you really want to be an empowering leader, check in with yourself. Is there a way for you to help them, work with them to speak up? Because I don't know, this is not what I'm an expert in, and you do have experts here on this, but I just want you to know that there probably are people on your team that you could empower more by having more empathy and compassion for them.
Okay, thank you. I know you've got some people who've been speaking to you directly with some questions, haven't they?
Yes. I got some really powerful questions here. So if you have low self-esteem in your personal life, can you have authenticity and vulnerability, healthy authenticity and vulnerability at work? Yes, is the short answer. Yes, you can. And some people, it's like I talked about identities. Sometimes we can have two different identities, an identity at work and an identity at home. And sometimes work, and I was really impressed here because a lot of people have brought up, I didn't even ask them about the culture here. So I really appreciate what you've developed as a culture. It's a very warm, it's a very family. Some consulting companies, everybody can be just out for themselves, but everybody told me that it's like everybody looks out for everybody else. And so if people do have issues at home, sometimes work can really give them a place to give them some stability, give a sense of family and teamwork, and to really give them a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose. And so the answer is yes. Even if you sometimes can struggle in your self-esteem in your personal life, work can be a place where you get that self-esteem and where you develop that self-esteem. So that's the answer to that question. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're neurodiverse, should you mask it? So should you work hard to fit in? The short answer is no. This is such a complex issue. And again, I'm not a specialist in here, and I'll just give you my thoughts on it. Authenticity is showing up who you are and as you are. And there's healthy ways to put that out there and to communicate to people about that. And if they don't deal with that, if they don't like that, that's their issue, not your issue. If they don't like who you are, that's not your issue. One of the things I'm working on is over-responsibility. This is something I often take over-responsibility for people, meaning I might not speak up because I don't want somebody to take it the wrong way or to feel a certain way. People are responsible for themselves. And of course, when you insult people, that's not what I'm talking about. But when you show up as yourself and with who you are, I'll be honest with you, 2 people are going to love you no matter what. 2 people are going to hate you no matter what you do. And then 6 people are going to be drawn by your authenticity and your vulnerability. Sometimes we try to make all 10 people like us, and that's going to make nobody like us, as they say. And so when it comes with masking things, I think I can understand if you have some differences that aren't always accepted. That's got to be massively difficult in your life. And that could be, maybe there's something to do with your personal life, maybe there's something to do with how you're wired, et cetera. And to me, you really want to authentically express who you are in a very healthy way and realize that's not everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay. That's their decision to make, and let them have that decision and walk their path. Now, I also understand we're in a business, and it can be different in a business and personal life. But I just wanted to give my answer to that, and maybe give you all some permission just to be yourself more, and just to own your whole experience and everything you're going through. Yeah.
Okay.
We're getting to some deep ones, man. I
was going to say, yes. Shall I give you maybe a less deep question, possibly?
Yes.
In terms of people who are particularly interested in what you've had to say this morning and want to look into this and research it themselves, in terms of resources, or I know there's your book, of course, but yes. In terms of resources and other things that people can maybe sign up to or look into buying or researching, should they want to understand this topic in more detail? What would you recommend?
Besides my book, that's why I wrote. No, I'm joking. I'll answer it this way. The single best thing I could really encourage everybody to do is meditate. And that brings mindfulness. And I have ADD, ADHD, and if you would have known me before, I wouldn't even make eye contact with you in a conversation. And it was so difficult just getting through life. And I made a lot of lifestyle changes, and meditation is one thing that I do. And what it's done is it's slowed life down. Life would just go so quickly for me that I'd be in this constant state of reaction. And now when things happen, I feel more connected. And the more I meditate, the more I have this connection. And it's like when things happen, I have the ability to choose how I respond rather than just snap and react and react and react. And what's difficult about, I work with different professional services firms, what's difficult about your industry is you bill hours. Your time is everybody's time is important, but for people in this room, your time is the most important because you're literally getting paid on that, and you have leadership responsibilities. And when you're busy, you're not reflective and you're not strategic. The only way for you to be strategic is to have reflection time. If you have back-to-back meetings every day, you know what? You're not thinking strategically, you're thinking reactively. You may think you're thinking strategically, but you're not. And if you want to be more strategic, so I talked about meditation. I'm not going to give you the whole meditation speech, but meditation is one thing, and there's real simple ways to do that. But if you're like, hey, I got to be more strategic, or some of your peers or whatever said you'd be more strategic, take an hour every week. I call it the power hour. For the first part of this, and do this first thing in the morning. Don't look at your email. Don't look at your phone. I know you all probably look at your email and your phone first thing after you get up, but don't. That's a whole other conversation. Don't do that. And go take a walk outside for 20 minutes. You got an hour here. First thing, go take a walk outside. It doesn't have to be outside. I know it's raining most of the time here. I live in the UK now, by the way. I know it's raining freaking all the time. But it's just something about walking without your cell phone or whatever just clears your mind. And you could set an intention like, hey, I got a difficult client. What should I do about that client? And just process that for 20 minutes, half an hour. Or what it could be is you could say, I don't know, and just go in with a blank mind. And your mind's going to be like, oh, there's that situation. Your brain needs this processing time. And then when you get back to your office, or you open up your laptop, whatever it is, spend the rest of that time doing something strategic. Whether that's researching competitors, reading for half an hour blogs about the state of the industry, doing a job description for something, doing a new product offering, whatever it is. Because The strategic stuff isn't urgent. There's the whole Stephen Covey quadrants and everything. So you have to block out time to be strategic. Otherwise, you'll never be strategic. And if you give yourself even 1 hour a week or 1 hour every other week, after 2 or 3 months, you realize I am thinking more strategically. I am taking action strategically. I'm making progress strategically, not just in my day-to-day.
Okay, thank you. I haven't got any more questions specifically. I don't know whether you had some more that people raised with you.
I've got one more, and somebody asked me about oversharing. They said, how much should I share about to other people? How vulnerable should I be? And this goes back to meditation. One thing I work a lot on executives with is intuition. We all have very, very good intuition. And I could answer a lot of these questions. What do I do here? What do I do there? But the fact is, if you slow down, you know the answer. Almost any question you have, if you slow down and give yourself the space, you know the answer. So it's like, should I share this personal piece of information about somebody, to somebody I'm talking with? If you slow down and ask yourself, should I? You know whether you should. Is it safe? Is the person ready to receive it? Is this professional? Is this going to help things? There's no answer I can give you that's going to be better than you asking yourself and getting in touch with that part of you that knows. And the more you can develop that, the more powerful a person you're going to be.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether we've got any more questions from anybody in the room. I think we've got a little bit of time maybe. Has anybody got any other questions that they want to raise whilst Michael's still with us? If you do... Mike, there's going to be a microphone that arrives with you in 2 seconds.
Thank you. I'm interested in the whole concept of psychological safety. Have you got any tips or quick wins, quick fixes? I'm sure the answer is no, because that's not authentic. But anything that could help us in achieving that in a group context.
Help me though, in what situation? Like, give me a little bit more meat to go on.
I think just generally, because you talked about can people be themselves, it's enabling, creating that atmosphere or that culture that people feel psychologically safe to say what they want to say rather than keeping quiet.
Yeah, so I'd ask everybody in here, if you run weekly meetings or monthly meetings, ask yourself, what can you do? Because it's not like, is it psychologically safe or not? It's probably how psychologically safe it is, and there could be psychological safety around sharing personal things. There could be psychological safety around taking risks at work. So I appreciate that there's a variety of that. And so I would challenge everybody here just to reflect on the meeting that you run. What's one area that I can make it more psychologically safe? How can I take a step further towards that? And play around with it and tell everybody what you're doing. Hey, I'm going to do an experiment right here. This is something new. I'll tell you what is so powerful. When leaders say what they're feeling in the moment. For example, if you lead a team and you want to do a 10-minute psychological, you Google psychological safety, thingies or whatever, and it comes up, activities, and you're like, oh man, that sounds good, but I don't know how people are going to take it. And you start that meeting and you say, hey, everybody, I have a bit of anxiety right now. I want us to do this exercise, but this is out of my comfort zone. I never did anything about it. I never did anything like this before. And it's new to me. And so I just want to let you know that I'm feeling some anxiety right now. But can I do this anyway? Do you see how powerful it is for the leader to say, right now I have anxiety? Instead of I had anxiety a week ago, or sometimes I have anxiety, to say, right now, this is what I'm going through. And it can really bring that there's such a power to doing that. Does that work for you?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to share for a moment, I was told at dinner last night by one of the managers in my office that some people find me intimidating, which to me, that seems extraordinary because I am what I am, and I would like to think that. But I love all this reflection, so thank you very much for everything you've spoken to us about today.
Well, thank you for sharing something authentic and vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other?
Stay there.
Bear with us. That is you, Martin, isn't it? There'll be a microphone
There's a
with
microphone
you in.
on
It's on its way.
She's got to go through the obstacle course.
Look at that.
You learnt earlier that how much we've grown, and that growth isn't just on a P&L account for the firm, it's in every office and it's in every person's lives in this room. There's more clients, there's more work, there's more deadlines, there's more people to train. Could you just give us a few traits for what would look like bad leadership when people are under such pressure, so perhaps we can nip ourselves when we see ourselves doing it?
Well, it's a great question. So your question is, what traits would I have or other people have when they're under too much pressure? Is that accurate? Yes. Okay. I can hear that. So the ego, first of all of us react differently. I either get very aggressive and critical, or I get withdrawn. And a lot of us have that differentiation. What you can do for yourself is, it's a great reflective question, is when I get under stress, what do I do? That's a question for you to ask yourself. And to keep an eye out for that. When it comes to people in your team, you want a variation from the norm. So yeah, they're not talking up as much in meetings. They are, because there's a reason for everything. I feel as leaders, we have to be like detectives. Hey, Mary's been awesome, but last week she's been late twice. I had a client complaint, and she's looked disheveled. So what I don't want to do is go to Mary like, what's going on with you? What's your problem? That's the last thing we want to do, right? Mary's awesome. I want to have that conversation. Hey, Mary, is everything okay? What's going on? 80% of the time, it's like, hey, my mom just got sick. My husband got in a car accident. I just got diagnosed with cancer. But she doesn't feel, she's going through her own thing. But when we can understand that and find that out and support them through that, first of all, that's a humanistic thing to do. And second is they're going to be loyal for life. I mean, that's why I'm a leader, to help support people through things like this. But you have to have that you have to meet them in that really compassionate type place. So it's it's looking for variations of how that person has been showing up. But a lot of times it looks like control. The ego craves control. And when we're under a lot of pressure, it's like controlling. I get so many leaders that are saying, I'm micromanaging and I hate it, but I don't know what else to do. Because they feel under all this pressure, and so what they do is they micromanage. So it's things like that. It's snapping at people. It is being withdrawn. And again, when you catch people doing that, don't get down on them because they have enough pressure on them. Have that authentic conversation. Take them in a private place. Really connect to them as humans and see if you can get to it. Great question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're out of questions, and I think we're out of time a little bit as well. So thank you for everyone's questions, whether that be just in the room or over lunch. And again, Michael, I know you're going to leave us now, but just if we can thank Michael again once more for what you've shared with us this morning. Thank you very much.